It's an extraordinary privilege and absolutely pleasure asking me to say a few words on this very important occasion. I never realized that Gaudium, which is just a few steps away, I think one of your school branches, from the hospital where I work, it's incredible. So sometimes if you don't look beyond your shortest vision, you miss out the world. And truly, until now, I have missed out the world. Such lovely campus, looking at those pictures. What a treat to the eyes. I'm reminded of the greatest poet, Robert Frost, that we all learned in the school. When the woods are dark and deep, I have many promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. It just reminds me of that. This is both for the students as well as for the parents. When I went to school to Little Flower and the three brothers, in those days back in the 1960s, this city and state was blessed with what we call as a very select group of primary schools, which were run by missionary organizations. Our school was run by the Montefiore brothers, and it was then deemed to be the number one school, which was very difficult to get admitted to, but we're fortunate enough to have our education in that premier school. My father himself was a teacher. He was a high school teacher. The learnings at my home and the learnings at my school and the demands that we had is completely a contrast from what is happening in today's world. I had constantly the pressure to be the number one performer, and I'm supposed to be the leading beacon of light for my brothers and my family. The methods of teaching were completely different. You're all focused on objective assessment, where your ranking and scoring always mattered. Whether you got 98%, 100%, first rank, second rank, all of those things. So growing with that kind of a pressure and having about 100 math problems on the weekend, an entire summer vacation being dedicated to preparing for the next year's classes at the insistence of my father, I never knew whether such an education approach was right or wrong, and even till today I cannot answer. But probably I have the answers. As my children who grew up in the United States, who were born there and went to schools of this kind, I said, let me experiment with them. I had the pressure of my parents, and because of them, to some extent, that I was responsible to make those grades, be a topper and all of those things. But can I give the freedom to my children where they'll be self-motivated? We offered them the best of the best, but let them direct their destiny at the end of the day. And lo and behold, that experiment truly worked. I was somewhat anxious when the kids reached the high school. Certainly you'll have a lot more distractions, and as parents we're overtly concerned, and particularly Indian parents, when we tend to be conservative, when you're going to certain parties in the evenings or mingling with others or attending this and that. But nevertheless, both my boys have done extraordinarily well with the freedom and the liberal approach that they have taken. And they have not done anything less than me. They performed much better than me. So that has convinced me to believe in life, that education for the children should be in such a relaxed environment to hone in completely their spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical well-being, which is absolutely so important. It's a quintessence of the success and the brightness of the future at the end of the day. If you do not have that, you will not be able to succeed. Anything that is learned out of pressure will only remain a simple memory bank. But anything that is learned where you tickle your senses, where you command your innovative powers, where you bring in your natural self, and where your parents, you're participating with the greatest of passions at the end of the day, that leads to the culmination of the finest education for an individual. And education never ceases at high school or at college. It is a learning for a lifetime. We all have to imbibe that. All of us, teachers, students, and every one of us, I still continue to get educated every day. It is interesting. It is phenomenally relaxing. It is stimulating. The world is changing at such a pace that we cannot stop even by an hour's time for us not to be learning. So what is required in today's education for the children, from my perspective, is patience is thy virtue, compassion, passion of parents, and understanding the children to the fullest extent. Parents and students have to speak the same language, and that language is, it's not that you're right, it's not that I am wrong. Let us understand that. We all speak the same language. You're right, I am right. You're wrong, I am wrong. If you nurture this belief amongst our households and understand that parents play an equal responsibility in the outcomes of the children's education, then any nation can be very proud of its citizens. The burden cannot be shifted just because we have a beautiful school like Gaudium, which has all the facilities, wonderful teachers, and incredible models of learning. And as parents, we cannot wash our hands off and shirk our responsibilities. We are completely engaged, we ought to be engaged at all levels with our children. The passion should be born at home at all times. Know your children, discover them every day, understand their needs, be patient with them. The world of neuroscience is completely defining human behavior. It is offering many, many new learnings in terms of understanding, humanity, and particularly children. Their minds are so fragile. Their thought processes are so tender. They can be afflicted, they can be damaged, they can be bent, they can be injured, they can be hurt, if we do not exercise proper caution in understanding them.